Translator, Dark Angel. Editor, Kurisu. He could not be certain whether the eldest imperial prince might ferret out the secret Feng Yan kept tucked away, yet by his own weighing of the currents, the odds were slim. For the third imperial prince had already moved a few days prior, but because Liang Guangzhu suddenly appeared and threw his weight about, the imperial guards the third imperial prince dispatched were promptly driven from the academy as easily as dust swept from a threshold. After that incident, the third imperial prince would assuredly have begun his own private probe into Feng Yan. If the third imperial prince had uncovered anything at all, he would definitely have come to inform Ling Han. Yet even now there was not the faintest scrap of news from the third imperial prince, and thus it was clear he had failed to find anything. When Ling Han reached Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, he first soothed Li Hao and Zhu Sheyi. For the time being, Li Hao would certainly be unable to return to the academy, but for Li Hao, this was without question a blessing, wearing the mask of misfortune. What sort of place was Heaven's Medicine Pavilion? A place that trafficked in medicines. There might be nothing else here, but if one spoke of alchemical pills, then perhaps at least 1/3 of all the alchemical pills within Rain Country could be found gathered here. And if one spoke of high-grade alchemical pills, then these pills were basically all issued from this very place, flowing outward to every corner of Rain Country. Ling Han now regarded Li Hao as a true friend, so naturally he would ask Yuan Shu to provide Li Hao an unlimited supply of alchemical pills, while he himself would also give Li Hao some guidance upon the road of cultivation. Just think, an inexhaustible sea of alchemical pills, and at his side a guide who had once been an elite of Heaven Tier, pointing the way in cultivation. If Li Hao's prowess still could not surge forward in great strides, then he truly ought to find a block of tofu and smash his head against it until he died. Li Hao and Zhu Sheyi naturally understood this reasoning, and thus they could not help but feel even greater gratitude toward Ling Han. In their hearts, both quietly made a vow. In the future, they would certainly do something for Ling Han, to repay him. After leaving Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, Ling Han had not yet returned to the academy when he was intercepted midway and invited over by the third imperial prince. Brother Ling! The third imperial prince still bore that signature overbearing aura of his, though now a thin sliver of concern had been added to his face. I heard my eldest brother went to see you today? Since your Imperial Highness already knows, why ask a question whose answer you hold in your own palm? Ling Han replied bluntly he had not the slightest interest in the contest between these two brothers, nor the slightest intention of getting himself entangled in such troublesome affairs. Hey! The third imperial prince laughed. I trust Brother Ling would not be so easily swayed by my eldest brother's flowery tongue. Ling Han could not help but smile and said, That may not be. He then recited the conditions the eldest imperial prince had laid out, and as the words fell one after another, the third imperial prince's expression shifted again and again, inwardly thinking that the eldest imperial prince was indeed ruthless, to dare even promise to make Ling Han a king, and to aid him in breaking through to flower blossoming tier. One had to understand. Even if the current Rain Emperor wished to name as king someone not of the Qi family, he would still meet fierce objection from the imperial court. The stakes within this matter were far too heavy, and it was definitely not something so simple that could be settled by merely bestowing a title. If one were to be made king, then one should certainly possess a piece of land to raise one's own kingdom upon. Yet Rain Country had been established for several thousand years, and all land under the Empire's administration had long since been carved up among the nobility. So where would Ling Han's land come from? Unless Ling Han led the army out to war and seized territory belonging to neighboring nations? And to use the power of the nation to help Ling Han break through to flower blossoming tier was even more laughable. If it were truly that easy, then why was there only a single person in the entire Rain Country at flower blossoming tier? I know Brother Ling is extremely loyal and would definitely not betray me. The third imperial prince laughed loudly, seeming very pleased. Yet Ling Han caught the dark undertone that lined the laughter. In a struggle for the throne, who would not become cold-blooded and cruel? Even brothers of blood and flesh could turn their blades upon one another? Ling Han laughed and said, "That may not be. If the benefit upon the board is sufficient, then anything can be discussed." Pooh. The third imperial prince instantly choked, as if someone had driven a punch straight into his face. His expression was beyond awkward. His face twitched, and he forced out a smile as he said, "Brother Ling truly is a fine joker." Ling Han shook his head and said, "I am not joking. For example, if I could cultivate the Eye of Truth, then I would definitely become good friends with your Imperial Highness." Eye of Truth! The third imperial prince's expression changed drastically, and he finally understood that the eldest imperial prince had revealed the existence of this precious treasure to Ling Han. Yet compared with naming him king, or using the nation's power to help him break through to flower blossoming tier, this mystical power was a much smaller chip. If it were not locked within the inner chamber, he would not mind taking it out and handing it over to Ling Han. After all, it was merely a support-type mystical power. And after so many years, no one had managed to obtain the inheritance within. So he believed Ling Han would not be an exception either. Trading a practically useless item for a mighty support? How could a genius like the third imperial prince not desire such a profitable exchange? But the trouble was that he truly did not have the right to enter the inner chamber. Hold on. The third imperial prince tapped his finger and said, "In another 2 months, it will be my imperial father's 60th birthday, and the whole nation will celebrate. At that time, my imperial father will certainly host a grand banquet for the guests, and he will draw out some treasures from the national treasury for all to admire. So there will be a chance to enter the national treasury. However, the lock to the inner chamber is the Heaven and Earth United lock, and unless one possesses the key, there is no way to open it. Yet at these words, Ling Han's eyes brightened. He possessed the blood-sucking origin gold, which could shift its shape at his will and could open any lock beneath the heavens. So to him, this was nothing difficult. He said, "Then I truly would like to enter the national treasury and take a look." The third imperial prince was a clever man. He immediately stared at Ling Han in shock and said, "Brother Ling has a way to open the Heaven and Earth United lock? Ha ha! I've learned a few little tricks of lockpicking." Ling Han naturally would not reveal the existence of blood-sucking origin gold, so he used an excuse to cover it. The third imperial prince pondered a moment, then said, "All right, when I manage to win the position of organizing this event, I will bring Brother Ling into the national treasury. However, Brother Ling, let me speak first. There are many extremely valuable treasures within the inner chamber, and they are of utmost importance. You must absolutely not take any of them. Otherwise, it will not only be you. Even I will have to bear the consequences." "Rest assured, I'm not interested in the other items," Ling Han said with a smile. The third imperial prince could not help rolling his eyes. He naturally did not believe Ling Han's words, but for the sake of obtaining Ling Han's support, he could not fuss over such things. Besides, he would stand to the side and watch, so he definitely would not allow Ling Han to act as he pleased. There were risks, yet the level of risk was within control. "Then I shall take my leave first, and quietly await good news from your Imperial Highness," Ling Han said, smiling. "Brother Ling, please?" The third imperial prince nodded. Ling Han cast a glance at Ziyan. The girl seemed to have turned into a completely different person, becoming taciturn and colder in manner. He did not pay it much mind. It was none of his business, after all. When he returned to his own courtyard within the academy, he saw Lu Yutong and Li Xichan were both there. The two had come to express their concern. Afterward, Master purposely went to visit Master Lian, but Master Lian said he had his own difficulties. He would unconditionally support whatever Feng Yan decided to do, Li Xichan said. Lu Yutong said, "I used the power of my clan to investigate Feng Yan, but I couldn't find out anything. Just like you, he seems to have suddenly become powerful overnight." Ling Han's expression turned thoughtful. So Lian Guangzhu had actually said he would unconditionally support whatever Feng Yan decided to do. That was a shocking promise. And the greater the power in Feng Yan's hands, the more disadvantageous matters would become for Ling Han. Of course, he himself had Heaven's Medicine Pavilion as well as the Alchemy Department behind him, and these two forces were definitely not weaker than the Martial Arts Department in terms of power. If it truly came to an outright clash, it would surely drag the imperial family of Rain Country, as well as the 8 great clans, into this storm. The Rain Emperor would definitely not permit such internal strife to unfold. It was strange. He had been able to subdue Fu Yuansheng, Wu Songlin, and the other alchemists because of his alchemy ability from his previous life, yet it most likely was not to the point that they would obey his every command. Feng Yan rose so suddenly and in such a strange manner. The imperial family of Rain Country must have investigated him as well. If even the power of an entire nation can't find anything, then you shouldn't waste time worrying over this, Ling Han said to Lu Yutong. Don't forget yourself. Li Chan pointed out, isn't your rise sudden and strange as well? Translator, Dark Angel. Editor, Kurisu Ling. Han froze for a breath, then broke into ringing laughter. That's right, he had forgotten about himself. In his previous life, he had been the Alchemy Emperor. Wherever he went, all alchemists bowed and revered him, treating his every word like an edict of the heavens. So he had long since grown accustomed to that, as the most natural thing in the world. Yet he had neglected one thing. Now he was only 17. In the eyes of those who held power at court, he was also an unstable variable, an existence that could shake the Qi family's reign. If matters reached a boiling point, he could be erased as easily as brushing aside dust. If they knew that I was the one who refined those 9 foundation building pills, they'd be even more dumbfounded, wouldn't they? Ling Han murmured, propping his chin with one hand. The foundation building pills were divine medicine, capable of truly tugging at the fragile balance of powers in Rain Country. If another 10 or more spiritual pedestal tier elites appeared, the whole situation would plunge into utter chaos, because the cake was only so large. If a newcomer barged in, wanting a share of his own, then those already holding their portions would inevitably have to yield a piece to him. Who would willingly relinquish what was already in their grasp? It seems I did not think far enough ahead. Ling Han reviewed the days since his rebirth. In Grey Cloud Town and Dayuan City, it had been fine, but after entering the Imperial City, he seemed to have been somewhat too rash. But so what if I am a bit rash? With the status of a black-grade high-level alchemist, even the Rain Emperor would not lightly move against me. Ling Han tapped his fingers in contemplation, a flash of light passing through his eyes. Still, the matter of obtaining the Eye of Truth must be reconsidered. Though I have never met the Rain Emperor, rumor says he is exceptionally shrewd and extremely capable at keeping the reins tight. His 2 sons scheme and plot within this very imperial city. How could he fail to notice? Who knows? Perhaps the Rain Emperor has spies planted right beside those 2 imperial princes. If, at the instant I open the inner chamber and take the Eye of Truth, I am coincidentally caught red-handed, then even an alchemist's status would not shield me. My fate would be execution for my crime. Otherwise, I would be imprisoned for life, forced to refine pills for the Qi family until the end of my days. A faint smile flickered at the corners of Ling Han's lips as he thought, in my last life, I was too strong, so no one dared employ petty schemes against me. But after rebirth, I have been careless. Who knows? Something that seems effortless to me might still bring unexpected failure. My priority now should be to break through to Gushing Spring Tier and uncover the true secrets of the Black Tower. This is the most precious treasure in the world. I cannot pick up a sesame seed and lose sight of the watermelon. Seeing his mind wander, Lu Yutong and Li Chan spoke at the same time. What are you thinking about? The moment their words landed, they glared at each other. Why did she say the same thing as me again? How hateful. It's nothing. I just broke through, so I need to stabilize my cultivation first, Ling Han said with a smile. 9th layer of element gathering tier. Lu Yutong suddenly shrieked. What? Li Chan was likewise stunned, because only yesterday, Ling Han had clearly still been at the 7th layer of element gathering tier. He had actually crossed 2 cultivation layers in a single day. Could he be any more outrageous than this? It's nothing worth making a fuss about. Ling Han smiled serenely. In his last life, He had climbed to the formidable height of Heaven tier. How could a tiny advance with an element gathering tier make him feel any ecstasy? What a poser! Both girls shot him looks of disdain. When did I pose? Ling Han felt utterly wronged, yet he could not be bothered to argue with the two girls. Instead, he continued contemplating his sword arts, intent on condensing the 7th flash of sword chi. Once he succeeded in forming the 7th flash of sword chi, his battle prowess would rise another level. More importantly, that would mean he was one step closer to Sword Ray. The clash between Feng Yan and Ling Han stirred enormous waves within the academy, because even the two headmasters appeared at the end of the conflict. Ling Han was still fine, because Wu Songlin did not say much. Thus, most believed he had merely passed by coincidentally and chosen to uphold justice. Feng Yan was another matter entirely. The theory that he was Lian Guangzu's illegitimate son sparked an uproar, and most people practically regarded it as confirmed. Of course, there were still some who could see deeper. Lian Guangzu's attitude toward Feng Yan did not resemble that of a father toward an illegitimate son, but rather that of an old servant toward his young master. Yet this old servant had an unbending backbone, while the young master was still too weak. So the relationship had not yet become clearly defined. Whatever the truth, Feng Yan had already become an extraordinarily popular and formidable figure in the Academy's eyes. However, the fact that his younger brother had his arms sliced off by Ling Han and he still could not do anything to Ling Han in vengeance still dealt a blow to his image. Feng Yan had already announced that Ling Han was his enemy, and that within 3 months he would definitely kill Ling Han. If anyone dared befriend Ling Han, then they would now escape a similar fate. After these words spread, the whole academy erupted, all thinking Feng Yan far too arrogant. Leaving aside whether Feng Yan might be Lian Guangzu's illegitimate son, even if he were merely Lian Guangzu's old man, he still had no right to rage so openly within the imperial city and declare an intent to murder. After all, this was Qi family land, not Lian clan territory. Unexpectedly, the imperial family displayed no reaction to the matter. No one knew whether they were pretending not to have heard, or whether they thought Feng Yan too young and thus chose not to hold him to account for Lian Guangzu's sake. However, the new auction at the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was right around the corner. Because 9 foundation building pills would be auctioned this time, incredible excitement surged among the great clans and the other middle-class clans. Even the imperial family could not maintain composure. After all, there was only one person in Flower Blossoming tier in the entirety of Rain Country, and he had not appeared for many years, so it was unknown whether he was still alive or already dead. Within Rain Country, the spiritual pedestal tier was doubtlessly the strongest cultivation tier. Those at this level could do as they pleased and practically disregard the Empire's laws. They were truly the elite among elites. The foundation building pill could greatly raise a martial artist's chances of breaking through to spiritual pedestal tier. So naturally, it attracted every known faction's fervor. Who would not want a few more such terrifyingly powerful figures to bolster their own foundation? In the world of martial artists, everything was seized through power. The middle-class clans sought a foundation building pill to ascend into the ranks of great clans, while the 8 great clans and the imperial family hoped for a few more spiritual pedestal tier elites to strengthen their clans and further secure their position within the balance of power. This was destined to be a brutally fierce contest. Ling Han was completely unbothered. Money was merely something he needed to purchase more medicinal ingredients and refine more pills. Even if he possessed more of it, it was of little use to him. When the day of the auction arrived, the eldest imperial prince had indeed come very early and earnestly extended an invitation to Ling Han. Liu Yu Tong and Li Xichan had long known of the auction, and so had naturally arrived early as well. Thus, Ling Han had to bring the two of them along, as well as Hu Niu. So young Master Han has already plucked the 2 most beautiful flowers of the imperial city. I was still feeling a bit strange earlier about how young Master Han had no beauties at his side, especially when you are so outstanding and elegant. The eldest imperial prince laughed loudly, looking as though he had found a kindred spirit. Liu Yutong and Li Chan both blushed, yet did not argue. It was unknown whether they were subdued by the eldest imperial prince's might, or whether they had simply chosen to admit it indirectly. Meanwhile, Ling Han rolled his eyes. So, this fellow had previously thought there was something wrong with him, or perhaps that he liked men? He laughed and said, "Are my good friends. Good friends. I understand. I understand." The eldest imperial prince's smile grew even more suggestive. Damn this man and his impure thoughts. Ling Han changed the subject and asked, "Does your imperial highness also want the foundation building pill?" Though I have not yet broken through to spiritual ocean tier, my current cultivation at most will trouble me for 1 more year, the eldest imperial prince said with confidence. If I can obtain a foundation building pill, then in the future, when I attempt to break through to spiritual pedestal tier, my odds will be higher. Unfortunately, my financial resources are limited. Otherwise, I would definitely try to obtain all 9 foundation building pills. That way, my breakthrough to spiritual pedestal tier would be practically certain. Liu Yutong and Li Chan could not help turning their gazes toward Ling Han. This fellow had so casually produced 9 foundation building pills. If you could cling to him, then it would truly ensure you could break through successfully.